Hey everyone, welcome back to Fast Charging for our next episode in our series of Which Company is Doomed. And today we are doing a lot of people's favorite of whether or not they're doomed or not, and that is Nikola Motor Corporation. So Brian from My Tesla Weekend, My Tesla Live, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Bear. So wonderful to be here. I just noticed we haven't changed clothes in weeks. That's bizarre.
Well, you know what? I like this shirt. It's my favorite shirt, and I'm not
This
wearing any pants, so it doesn't really matter.
this is my special Is Doomed series outfit. I love it.
Yes.
So, before we get into it, tell me a little bit about Nicola for the three people who don't know.
Okay. Well, Nikola was founded by a soon-to-be convict, Trevor Milton, and he kind of screwed the pooch on the whole company by doing what he did, and we're not going to spend too much time talking about that, but it left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. Nicola's got a great idea, a great concept, whether Brian thinks so or not. They did start off by making semi-trucks that were battery-powered, and they performed quite well, and they're quite fast. But their main goal is to power these trucks by hydrogen, and they will also want to be the hydrogen supplier. So they are working with many different partners to build hydrogen stations around the country. They want to have 60 by the end of what year was that? Next year?
Oh, I'm not sure. It is coming up later in one of the links, though.
Okay, perfect. They have started construction on several in California, and they have a large hydrogen hub here in the area of West Phoenix, where they have a couple hundred acres that they're going to be creating a massive hydrogen production facility, and they've got contracts in place to get cheap electricity. So they've got a lot of things lined up, but they have a big gap from one spot to the other spot. And the other spot, this is where we are now, and this is where they need to get to. And their goal is to get here by the end of the year. And where that here is producing their fuel cell electric vehicle, which is going to be hydrogen powered, and they're going to be able to then sell them to customers around the country.
Yeah. So the first thing we want to talk about is the engineering. I just pulled up a Sandy Monroe video. We don't need to watch it. I just put it on for fun. But the idea is Sandy Monroe is an engineering wizard. Nobody knows. There might be some people who know more than him, but I've never met them. I've never heard of them.
Or they're not alive.
Or they're no longer alive.
Yeah.
Sandy was impressed. When Sandy is impressed with your engineering, I'm impressed with your engineering. Now, he didn't have much opportunity to interact with the hydrogen vehicle because it was still in an early alpha at the time. And
But that's what he was looking at in most of the videos that he put out. It was the alpha.
okay, so for engineering on a scale of 1 to 10, what are you giving him?
In a sense, it's very simple what they're doing. In a sense, they are taking an existing cab and truck that is already designed, so that they're not starting from scratch and having to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in making a frame, a chassis, a cab, and all the things. They're partnered with Iveco, so they've got a truck and they've got all the parts of a truck. What they're doing is they are then adapting them to run off of a fuel cell. So their engineering is all in
Or
the
a
battery.
battery.
Yeah, their engineering is all into the battery and then into the fuel cell. And they started with the battery electric, and they've run into issues not with the engineering of the vehicle itself, because they've been able to create them. There's no infrastructure to charge one of these trucks in a reasonable amount of time. There's videos out there or pictures showing them parked at Electrify America, and that's not reasonable, and it would still take several hours to charge at that station, because they have something like it's approximately 750 kilowatt battery in the BEV. It's broken up into 9 battery packs. When you get to the hydrogen vehicle, it's broken up into 2 battery packs, which brings down your expense a lot, because we all know that with electric vehicles, it's the battery that costs the most. So as far as the engineering, I think that they've got it mostly down. I personally had a ride in a Nikola BEV. Uh, it was a fast truck. I mean, we didn't spin the tires or anything, but I did get to do the drive, and it felt like I was in my Model Y, and that's how I would compare it. I was just a little higher up, but it rode just like my Model Y. It was comfortable. It was quiet. It was fast. I liked the truck. Now, I don't think the fuel cell is going to be much different. It's going
Shouldn't
to,
be.
yeah,
It shouldn't be. It's still an electric drivetrain in the end, because they're not burning hydrogen; they're converting it back to electricity. So, engineering scale of 1 to 10.
I'm going to go with a 7.
7.
I'm going high.
Okay.
Where you at?
Well, so I'm only going to assess it based on the battery electric part, because the fuel cell part I can't speak to. I haven't seen anything in depth that would give me any perspective on it. The battery drivetrain.
You have though, because you've seen the Sandy Munro video where he spent a detailed amount of time looking at a fuel cell beta or alpha and saying it looked more like a beta.
Yeah.
And that's what he was impressed about.
Right. I don't have enough real world experience. If you want me to include that, I will, but it will knock the score down. For the battery, for the engineering, like you said, all the components that are off the shelf, inarguable. Those are good. I think it's, especially at their low volume, it's a lot cheaper to do it that way. And the battery, it works. It's way better than Kenworth, Peterbilt, BYD, Mack. All those guys have ginormous batteries and are not getting 300 plus miles of range. And this is, according to the website, 733. So I'm going to give it an 8 for engineering.
Nice, nice.
Yeah. So let's get on to demand. Now, in this chart, looking out into the future, automotive power electronics semiconductor market. Anyway, EV powertrain semi market to grow at 31% compound annual growth rate. And I believe that is 100% true. There's massive incentives on these. I think the market for semis, for electric semis, is going to remain insatiable for a very long time.
I agree. I believe that a lot of these trucking companies are going to realize how much money that they're going to save having these vehicles with fuel costs. Then you throw in your maintenance, and then you throw. I mean, you could even save money on your health insurance because you've got people riding in vehicles that are not letting off all this carbon monoxide or all the exhaust that's hurting people. It's easier on your back because you're not in a nasty bouncy diesel truck. It's just a smoother ride. There's a lot of components. I mean, there's no real way that I'm going to come up with a measurement on that, but I just do think that there's going to be a tipping point with trucking companies where there's going to be some that are going to make the switch and others that are going to hold tight, and then they're going to realize this is working very well for some of the companies that have been switching over. So let's make that move.
Do truckers still wear kidney belts to hold their organs in place from all the bouncing? I don't know if that's still a thing. I know there was a time in history when it was. So what are you giving them for the demand for their product?
Are we talking about the battery electric or the fuel cell? Or
either
both?
one. Or both.
I think going forward in the future, there's going to be extremely high demand, and I'm going to put that at a 9.
I also am at 9 because the demand is insatiable. If you could make 1,000 trucks a week, you would sell 1,000 trucks a week. The only obstacle would be if your dealer network is being a little too aggressive, but the more you make, the less likely they are to have to sit on them, the more profit they could. So it's
the obstacle, there's a different obstacle there. and that's what's preventing the demand from just starting right at this moment, and that's the infrastructure to either charge the battery electric or to fill up a fuel cell is the infrastructure. Now,
Well,
I
we
think
can start
Nikola
with
had,
point to point. For Tesla's customers, Pepsi put in their own charger systems. Anybody can put in their own, and there's a lot of companies that are already using these trucks. They know what their use case is, and they know whether it fits it. Most semis don't travel 300 miles a day without stopping overnight. So until we get, I think the charging infrastructure will catch up in a reasonable amount of time.
yeah,
It's
it will. And Nikola is also working on that. They've got a division called Hyla, which is hydrogen in the la from Nicola. So Hyla, it's not not the
very
thing
clever.
from the Avengers.
Oh,
You know
hail
what I'm
Hyla.
talking. Yes. But they do have mobile hydrogen stations, and if they have point to point, depending on what the distance is, it could be a round trip and just have one station at one end, or they could have it at multiple stations, and they could be able to produce the hydrogen and fill up these trucks in a very fast amount of time.
Yeah. So
Their their goal, I believe, is like 5 minutes to fill up, 5 or 10 minutes to fill up a vehicle.
the next question is cost controls. How are they doing on that?
Oh, not so good. Not so good.
Because
They've got their expansion going on at their Coolidge site in Arizona, and it doesn't look like they're going to. I don't know if they're going to be have enough money to complete it. They don't need to at this moment, to be honest with you. They've got an assembly line that can make either battery electric or hydrogen on the same line, and it has a production capacity. I believe it's 2,500. It might be 2,000 a year. So they could be making, let's say, 2,000 hydrogen trucks a year. And I think that they're going to shift focus to just the hydrogen and away from the battery electric. So with that capacity, they can start bringing in income. Of course, they have to have the buyers for the trucks, and there are buyers out there. Anheuser-Busch has an order for 800 of these trucks, and
there will be no shortage of customers. On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you put their cost controls at today? Not their cash on hand, just their cost controls.
I'm going to put it pretty low. I'm going to give them a 3.
Yeah. I'm one below you there at a 2 because a lot of their strategy was based on scale that they have not yet been able to reach. And until they do, it's scary, man. It's scary for everyone.
Yeah,
Then we've got
they are definitely in a scary position right now. I'm
also
not.
in terms of, I didn't get to this link. I forgot to. The next one, Lion Electric. That's part of their cost control problem. Would you explain that?
Well, Nikola bought Romeo, a company called Romeo that was making their battery packs. There was a lack of disclosure with Romeo on the battery packs and what they really cost, and it ended up being that these battery packs cost a lot more to produce than what Romeo was telling Nikola. Nikola thought that they were much cheaper. Romeo was having some serious issues, financial issues, and they were looking like they could go bankrupt. So Nikola bought them out with shares of Nikola, and then in the end, they find out that these battery packs were a lot more expensive and than what they were getting paid for. So there was other companies that had contracts with Romeo, like Lion, and there was another one, I forget which one it was, that Nikola said, we're not giving you these battery packs. We can't give you these battery packs at the price that Romeo was selling them to you for. So I don't.
Fortunately, it looks like the lawsuit is seeking $75,000 in damage, which is great for this particular
I think that's the
complaint.
minimum. I think that's the minimum to file in that court. It, it might actually be tens of millions of dollars.
Oh, I see. I see.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunately a big chunk of the cost controls. They thought we can buy a battery for X and it, excuse me, they can buy a battery for X. If we buy the company, we'll get it even cheaper than that. And then they realized probably selling it to you for a loss. It's not X minus whatever percent, it's X plus a big chunk.
And
So
it was substantial.
it was substantial. Cost, cash on hand, got a chart here. How's cash on hand doing? We're looking at
Not so good.
not so good. Is that the one? There it is, cash on hand. Not the chart, but the numbers below it. As of the end of 2022, it looked like they had 244 million cash on hand. That's concerning. Would
Yes.
you speak to
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. There's no doubt that that is concerning. Now they have issued some more stock. I believe about 100 million, like a week or two ago. So they would have more cash, except that they're spending it. And whether or not the construction is continuing, see, in my eyes, the expansion that they did, maybe hold off on that, because my point before was, with their lack of cash on hand, you're spending money on something that you don't need right at this moment. You can start producing those trucks at a decent rate and start getting cash to come back in if you hold on to your cash, because they need cash to survive. So don't spend it on the construction. Spend it on making trucks that you can sell, hopefully at a profit.
And the problem is, right now is a very bad time to take out a loan, and it's a bad environment in the macro to be selling shares. So there could not be a much worse time. There hasn't been a time this bad to try and raise money for what they're doing. So cash on hand, score out of 10.
On
1. I was actually being more generous and saying 2 because they still have some runway, but they will burn through it.
yes,
And then we've got deliveries and revenues stumble, but there's plenty in the works for 2023. So here's where we're going to talk about the roadmap. This is part of it. This is their plan. You've already been talking about their roadmap quite a bit. And then we've got Nikola launches first hydrogen fuel cell truck mobile fuel charger. And this is all part of the hydrogen vision. What would you give their roadmap in terms of their plans, their models, the path forward?
if they can keep enough money available, if they can keep their cash on hand, as long as they have money to keep functioning, I believe that they actually have a good roadmap.
Okay.
It's the question is, can what I said earlier, can they get from here to there? They're here being right now, they're being third quarter, fourth quarter, where they are actually producing saleable FCEVs. If they can
Yeah.
get to that point where they're getting money coming back in, it's going to help alleviate the cash flow problem that they're having. Once they have some cash flow coming in, it's going to help bolster the stock. It's going to make investors go, okay, this is making me feel better about this company. The stock price is in the turlet, and it's going to be putting out these vehicles that are going to make a difference. They will have their earnings call within a couple of weeks, I believe, for quarter one. I'm honestly not sure how that's going to turn out. I'm hoping to hear something positive. They had issues with the battery that they bought from Romeo, where there was issues with the casting, and they had to redo that. If they've gotten past that, that means that they've brought the cost down on the batteries. Maybe they can even sell some to somebody else
Okay.
and bring in some revenue. So we'll
All
have
right.
to.
Enough filibustering. What's the score?
And this was which category again? Roadmap.
Roadmap.
I think they have a good roadmap if they can get past the hump. So I'm gonna go with a 7.
Wow. I'm at 3 because as much as I believe in their engineering, I think the road ahead is very difficult, and the targets of, a couple hundred BEVs, a couple hundred FCEVs for this year is unlikely to make a substantial enough dent in the cash flow problem.
I agree with that. I still like their roadmap.
Yeah.
It's a matter of staying on the road.
So let me get these scores in. And that's a 2, that's a 9 and a 9. Oh, no, those aren't pretty. A 2 and a 3, and a 2 and a 1, and a 3 and a 7. That gives them a score of 51. So that makes them, as of now, as of the companies we've covered so far, that puts them in second place, behind only Hyundai, ahead of Lucid and VinFast by a substantial margin. And I think that's probably a fair rating. I think they've got a tough road ahead, but they've got a incredible market and a very good product, and that's really what's saving them. If they were making, jet skis instead, I'd say they're doomed. But this is something that we see thousands of on the road every day.
You see thousands of them?
Of semi-trucks, I
Oh,
do.
of semi trucks. And I do see Nikola trucks on the road from time to time around here. When we do the flyovers, there is always testing going on. So they didn't just go, okay, it's good. They are still road testing these things every single day. They've got the track that they built. So I like the roadmap, and I think that's the roadmap and the engineering looks like it's in decent shape.
All right.
It's
So
that money thing.
So thanks to my patrons who get early access, bonus content, all that good stuff. What did you want to say?
Same thing. Thank you, Patreons. Thank you, viewers. We appreciate you. I hope you appreciate what we're putting together for you, because whatever we come up with, that's what it's going to be. It's going to be a fact.
It's gonna be. You can take it to the bank. You can't do anything with it.
Indisputable.
Well, it's dispute. I mean, you can take it to the bank. They won't know what to do with it, but it might be nice to get out of the house once in a while. So we will get. We've got 4 more of these coming up over the next 2 weeks. So keep coming back every Tuesday and Wednesday at about 7, 8 a.m. when they drop, and we'll see you guys then. Thank you for your time, Bear, and we'll talk to you soon.